She pulls away right after the moment you finally felt close. And the silence that follows feels louder than any rejection you've ever known. If you've lived this moment, I want you to breathe and listen carefully, because what you're about to hear will challenge the story you've been telling yourself. I'm speaking to you not to comfort you, but to stabilize you. When a woman pushes you away at the exact moment you feel connection rising, it is rarely because she stopped wanting you. It's because wanting you activated something far deeper inside her nervous system. Attraction doesn't just spark desire, it awakens fear, memory, and self-protection all at once. And most men misread that reaction completely. From a psychological perspective, intimacy is not processed as romance first. It is processed as risk. The closer she feels to you, the more her brain starts scanning for danger, loss of control, and emotional exposure. This happens fast, often unconsciously. A woman can crave you and fear you in the same heartbeat, not because you are unsafe, but because closeness has historically come with pain, abandonment, or self-erasure in her past. Her body remembers what her mouth never tells you. When she senses herself wanting you more than she planned, her internal alarm goes off. Wanting you means vulnerability. Vulnerability means surrendering control. And control, for many women, equals safety. So she does what the nervous system is designed to do when it feels overwhelmed. It pulls back. Not to punish you, not to manipulate you, but to regulate herself. This is where men often sabotage everything without realizing it. You interpret her distance as rejection and respond with pressure, confusion, or emotional chasing. You ask what changed. You explain yourself. You lean forward when her system is asking for space. And the more you try to close the gap, the more her fear confirms itself. Her body says, "See, closeness means intensity, demands, and loss of autonomy." So she retreats further. Understand this clearly. The push away is not a statement about your worth. It is a reaction to how much impact you are having. Indifference does not cause distance like this. Emotional activation does. The woman who doesn't care drifts casually. The woman who cares feels overwhelmed and instinctively creates space to breathe. There is also something else happening beneath the surface that men rarely consider. When a woman wants you deeply, she begins measuring herself against you. She asks whether she is enough, whether she can maintain her identity, whether she will be chosen or eventually replaced. Wanting you places her ego and self-image on trial. Distance becomes a way to regain internal balance and self-definition. As a female psychologist, I can tell you this pattern is not rare. It is especially common in emotionally intelligent women who value independence. They are not running from you. They are recalibrating themselves. They are trying to make sure they can want you without losing themselves, and the way you respond during this moment determines everything that follows. If you collapse emotionally, you become another source of pressure. If you withdraw with bitterness, you confirm her fear of emotional punishment. But if you remain grounded, steady, and self-contained, something powerful happens. Her nervous system starts to associate closeness with safety instead of threat. She feels space without abandonment, desire without loss of self, and that is where real attraction stabilizes instead of burns out. Most men try to force closeness. The men she remembers knew how to hold their ground without gripping, and that distinction changes the entire dynamic. Here's the truth most men never hear. When she pushes you away, it's often a sign that she's closer to you than ever before. Paradoxical, isn't it? The very act that feels like rejection is actually a measure of her emotional investment. Her retreat is not from lack of desire, it's from the intensity of it. And this intensity triggers something primal in her brain, a mix of longing, fear, and self-preservation that no rational explanation can fully contain. Think about it. Your presence, your attention, your energy, these are not neutral. They ripple through her subconscious, activating both excitement and alarm. You are not just a man in her orbit. You are a force that her psyche must negotiate. If she were indifferent, she wouldn't push or pull. There would be calm, maybe even apathy. But when a woman feels you deeply, the internal conflict can be overwhelming. Her emotional system swings between craving closeness and seeking refuge from its own intensity. This is why timing matters more than most men realize. She doesn't just pull away because she wants to play games. She pulls away because her internal balance has been tipped. The more she wants you, the more she risks feeling consumed by desire. And because evolution wired her to protect herself from being consumed, her instinct is to step back. It's not manipulation, it's self-preservation. Her nervous system is essentially saying, I need to recalibrate before I can move forward. Men often react the wrong way here. They try to explain, argue, or chase, and every attempt to solve the mystery externally ignores the internal mechanism at work. You cannot negotiate with the part of her brain that is flooded with both attraction and fear. You cannot reason her out of instinctive reactions. The only thing that works is presence, patience, and emotional stability. If you become reactive, anxious, or clingy, you reinforce the very pattern you want to break. Here's the psychological leverage most men overlook. Your ability to hold your ground silently, without pressure, becomes more attractive than any words or gestures. Emotional restraint is magnetic because it signals that you are steady, reliable, and independent, qualities her system craves even when it fears them. Paradoxically, the more you resist the urge to chase, the more she begins to subconsciously associate you with safety and desire simultaneously. There's another layer to consider: past attachment patterns. Many women have been conditioned to expect disappointment, inconsistency, or abandonment. Even with a man who is fundamentally different, the body reacts to historical imprints. When she senses a high level of emotional intensity, those old patterns resurface, triggering withdrawal. It is not about you personally. It's about her nervous system being triggered by intimacy. Understanding this distinction transforms confusion into clarity. Now imagine what happens when a man begins to see her distance through this lens. He no longer reacts out of fear or ego. He observes, he calibrates, and he maintains his value without compromising his presence. He becomes the rare kind of man who can hold attraction without forcing it, intensity without smothering, and connection without triggering her defensive reflex. This is not manipulation. It's mastery of human dynamics. And here's the final piece. When she eventually returns, because she almost always does if the dynamic is handled correctly, she does so with clarity, desire, and appreciation. Distance is a reset, not a punishment. It is a psychological circuit breaker that, when respected, allows her to move toward you freely, not out of obligation, but because her system now feels safe to feel fully. Every time a man misunderstands this, he unwittingly erodes his own appeal. The lesson is simple yet profound. Your reaction defines the trajectory. Panic closes doors. Patience opens them. Fear pushes her away faster. Calmness draws her closer. And once you understand this, you step into a dynamic that most men will never grasp. There's a moment in almost every man's life when he wonders why the woman who seemed closest suddenly vanishes into silence. That vanishing act feels like a punishment, but it is actually an invitation, a challenge that tests your emotional intelligence, your patience, and your self-mastery. If you fail this challenge, the opportunity fades. If you pass, the connection deepens in ways most men will never experience. What many men miss is that her push away is never about control in the way you think. It's not a strategy or a trick. It is a reflection of her internal landscape. A woman navigating desire is negotiating between wanting closeness and preserving autonomy. If she feels that her identity or independence is at risk, even subtly, she will create distance, often abruptly, to protect herself. She doesn't always articulate this because words are slower than feelings. Her body speaks first, and her actions are louder than any explanation she could give. The psychological truth is that desire alone can overwhelm the system. When she wants you, every interaction becomes amplified. A smile carries weight. A touch ignites feedback loops in the brain that trigger both pleasure and alarm. The closer she allows herself to feel, the stronger the instinct to step back. This is not because she doubts you. It's because she is testing the limits of her own emotional regulation. The push away is her nervous system saying, I need space to integrate this intensity before it consumes me. Here's where most men derail. They interpret withdrawal as rejection, fear, or manipulation. They respond with chasing, arguing, or trying to force clarity. Every one of these reactions plays directly into the pattern she is already struggling to regulate. Her system perceives pressure as threat, which compounds the distance. Instead of creating connection, you amplify the push away. The powerful men understand this instinctively. They learn to stay grounded, detached from the need for immediate validation, while maintaining consistent presence. This doesn't mean ignoring her or playing games. It means embodying a sense of calm authority, someone who does not crumble under emotional intensity and whose own sense of self is independent of her reactions. When a woman sees that you can hold your energy without losing composure, her system begins to feel safety instead of threat, and desire grows not in spite of the distance, but because of the trust and space it creates. Another subtle factor is the mirror effect. Women often mirror the energy of men without consciously realizing it. If you become anxious, insecure, or reactive, she feels that energy in herself, which reinforces her own uncertainty and fear. But if you remain composed, confident, and patient, she experiences a subconscious release. She can feel desire without fear. She can move closer without being triggered by internal alarms. And this is when connection becomes magnetic rather than fragile. Men rarely understand that this dynamic is not linear. It does not progress in a straight line from interest to intimacy. It oscillates, pulls, and resets repeatedly. Each push away is a moment for you to demonstrate emotional resilience and presence. How you handle these moments determines whether desire fades or escalates, whether connection strengthens or collapses. You must also recognize that this is a psychological pattern, not a moral judgment. Her withdrawal does not mean she is playing you or that she is emotionally unavailable in a permanent sense. It is her system navigating intensity, and the way you respond determines if you are a stabilizing force or a source of chaos. This is the secret most men never see. The woman who tests your composure is also the woman who can feel your steadiness most deeply. Your ability to remain grounded during her retreat transforms her nervous system and ultimately transforms the connection into something rare and profoundly magnetic. If you can master this, you will find yourself in relationships where desire is deep, respect is mutual, and emotional intimacy is unshakable. You will no longer chase fear or confusion. You will operate from presence and certainty, the kind that most men confuse for luck or charm, but is actually deliberate mastery. By now, you've begun to see the pattern clearly. Her push away is not rejection, it's recalibration. But here's the truth that most men will never understand. It's also a mirror for you. How you respond when she pulls back reveals your level of emotional maturity, self-worth, and understanding of human dynamics. Every moment of patience, every ounce of calm, every silent acknowledgement of her space communicates more than words ever could. The woman who pulls away when she wants you most is not punishing you. She is unconsciously testing whether you can hold your value under pressure. And this is the test that defines the depth of the bond that can form. What happens if you fail this test? You chase, you question, you argue, you give in to the internal panic that screams, "Why is she leaving me? What did I do wrong?" And each reaction reinforces the very pattern she is navigating: fear, uncertainty, and the need to step back. You turn a temporary withdrawal into a permanent fracture. You transform a moment of high desire into anxiety and miscommunication. Most men look at the result and blame her, labeling her as confusing or inconsistent, but the responsibility always begins with how you respond. When you succeed, the dynamic transforms entirely. By holding your ground without detachment from care, you send a subtle yet powerful signal. You are steady, you are safe, and you are not consumed by fear. You allow her to return on her own terms, drawn not by obligation, but by a deep, intrinsic attraction that has matured under your patience. She will feel her own desire more fully, unencumbered by the fear of losing herself or losing you. The paradox is stark. The less you push, the more she pulls. The less you chase, the more she comes forward willingly. But mastery requires awareness. It requires understanding that the oscillation between push and pull is natural. It is not a flaw, a game, or an expression of disinterest. It is an emotional rhythm rooted in evolutionary wiring, attachment history, and the intensity of true desire. Men who misread it see chaos. Men who understand it see opportunity. And opportunity, handled correctly, creates a connection that is rare, resilient, and profoundly magnetic. This knowledge also reframes your self-perception. You stop measuring your worth based on her reactions. You stop panicking when she steps back. You no longer see her withdrawal as a personal slight, but as an invitation to elevate your presence, emotional intelligence, and internal stability. You step into a space of power, not through dominance, but through calm, measured, and consistent self-possession. This is the kind of energy that naturally attracts women who value depth, intelligence, and authenticity. Here's the final, almost untold truth. Desire without patience is fragile, Connection without presence is temporary. Emotional intensity without understanding creates only volatility. By mastering your reaction to her push away, you become a rare type of man, one who is emotionally strong, psychologically insightful, and genuinely magnetic. You no longer fear the distance. You embrace it as a necessary rhythm of attraction. You no longer misinterpret withdrawal. You recognize it as a sign of depth, and you no longer chase uncertainty. You embody certainty. Now, here's something I want you to reflect on deeply. If a woman's desire grows stronger when you remain grounded and fades when you panic, then ask yourself this: what does your own reaction reveal about your capacity for emotional mastery? Write your answer in the comments. Share this video with a friend who needs to hear this. Like, subscribe, and remember, the measure of attraction is not in her words. It is in how you navigate her silence.